episode number 46, second one of the year. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, cheers, Dan, mate. Yeah,
James Shireby?
James Shireby, yeah. Let's introduce myself, just in case people don't know the fuck I am.
Oh, I've replaced you.
Quite a few people. I could be
You
anyone.
might replace me one day.
I could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be anyone.
Who's you fucking
You
chatting
are
to?
anyone.
Everyone's like, no, we recognise that voice.
Yeah.
She's still here. People are disappointed.
Booming down there, chatting shit.
No, but I'm doing well, mate. Yeah, it's been a good week. I'm back on my counselling course this week, so I've enjoyed getting my head back into that side of study, and I've handed in my essay, done all that. So
how did it go? Was it good?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, it's a good first term that we've done. So it's a school year that we do, really. So 3 terms. So that's made I've really enjoyed that. It's essentially it's amazing energy doing things that are important to you give you. And it's always a great feedback tool, isn't it? To go, God, I feel feeling good this week. Why is that? Probably a host of reasons, but one would be doing something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So, yeah, mate, really good. How about you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Completely over my illness now, so feeling good in the gym as well, which is cool. And down at Brighton, Liverpool this weekend, so I've got a good weekend of football. Get down, watch the Manchester derby, and then watch some football. So looking forward to that. And busy at the studio, busy time of year and at PTs. I mean, probably like yourself, I don't take on that many new clients really now, but I find that January is a time of year when the vast majority of my clients are here and they're training. Yeah. There's a lot of other times of the year where they'll be on holiday, they'll be away for business, there'll be few away each week, away for business, away on holiday. As we get into February, it might be a few skiers kicking around. So, but I find January with my client base, everyone's here. So it's, and mainly through February. So I always like this time of year and find it goes actually quite quickly. Because we are busy. There's some stuff I need to do with the studios as well. We've got some cool stuff coming up. Can I announce who's coming on the podcast? They are confirmed.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, cool, because I was going to do it anyway.
I didn't need your permission, James.
I thought I'd throw it out there.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
So, we have got Mr. Paul Standell coming back on, which we're going to go and record that up in London on the 27th of Jan, which, I say this month's going quickly. I don't have a fucking idea where we are. 2 weeks today, 2 weeks tomorrow, mate. So looking forward to that. Paul, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. If you haven't, he's been on the podcast before. I was actually on holiday for that one, and we did it via Zoom. But he's an incredibly interesting guy, highly skilled and qualified when it comes to teaching mechanics. We've gone through a lot of his own mental health studies and things as well, which he's always open to talking about. I'm currently coaching with him. He's currently my online coach as well. So having not actually been on the podcast last time, I'm really looking forward to it. And I know you're looking forward to meeting him in person, having an in-person conversation, aren't you, rather than a Zoom one?
Yeah, definitely. You build a lot better connection with people, don't you, really? So yeah, we really want to try and get different people on the podcast, don't we? And he'll be a really good person to have on, and it's going to be a good fun day out, and we'll have lots of good stuff to share for all the guys listening.
So I'm looking forward to that. We've also got our next guest lined up for... we've got guests lined up for February and March as well.
We have, other guests to come.
Yeah, so we'll introduce them later. But yeah, Thursday, they'll be the last... It'll always be the last one of the month, basically, is our aim. Is the last Thursday, or if we're travelling Friday of the month, there'll be a guest on, which is cool, because I said last week, get bored of talking to you, mate.
Well, it's good to mix it up, isn't it, really? Yeah. Be around different environments and different people is good for our growth, isn't it?
We like the London thing, don't we?
Yeah, we like going to London, don't we?
Okay.
Excuse for a beer, isn't it? Well, I'm in London, that's my beer.
So, today's one is from James getting triggered. Funny enough, we're not triggered, but... Yeah, would you want to say it? Because you weren't triggered, were you?
No, I wasn't triggered. I think this subject, for personal trainers listening, I'm sure they can relate to this. Essentially, it's where your clients are talking about nutrition, exercise, rehabilitation, whatever, and what they're telling you, in your head is maybe bullshit, maybe just really outdated, maybe just really unhelpful. And it's something that I've seen quite a lot throughout my career, and just the last few days it's just come in a little bit more, just purely that's how it's worked out. So it's a conversation we had off air, and it's one that you could really relate to as well, mate, isn't it?
Mate, really relate to, because I've had a couple in the last week or so, but to be honest, there tends to be a couple every week. It frustrates me less when it comes from a client who's just got these beliefs that they've built up over the years. It frustrates me slightly more when it's come from maybe another professional, be it another fitness professional, or maybe in some injury and pain style things where actually it's just incredibly outdated. If they're a medical professional, then they would have done obviously courses. So it's not that they don't know what they're talking about, but a lot of them, there's some quite outdated beliefs that can be quite frustrating. Or actually, there are some people doing some medical shit, which is just bullshit as well, actually. Aren't there? Well, are we going to go into what it is? Because there's some certain stuff that is bullshit.
want to just go down the path of the professional side and the trigger side, actually, because you said I was triggered and then we went back on that.
Yeah.
But actually, back in the day, I really would have been triggered.
Yeah.
Because in my career, I'm sure a lot of PTs listening, you've worked hard to study nutrition. You've invested time, energy and money into it. For me, the guys listening will probably know rehabilitation and pain science has been a passion. I've invested lots of money, lots of time. So I've learned this information, incredibly passionate about it. It's become a part of my identity a little bit. Someone comes in, change stuff that's really outdated or just incredibly...
Just bullshit.
Let's just
Sometimes
say
it is just bullshit.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's bullshit wherever it's come from.
Yeah.
Then what I used to feel myself get triggered and maybe not always react in the right way. And the best way I knew how at the time, but now I go, actually, James, there's a better way to handle this. And one big part of today's conversation will be, how the hell do personal trainers deal with these difficult situations? Do you just go, oh, let me stop you there, mate? Oh, change shit on you.
Yeah.
Stop you there. You're like, that doesn't build connection, doesn't build relationship. And then we're saying, well, you should believe me, Dan. Why, James? Because I'm right. Other people are wrong. So we're going to talk a little bit about the communication element of it, the belief element, and how we can start to... Well, we're just trying to help people at the end of the day. We should be doing it to help the person, not to help our ego. Often, and when I was younger, and still at times, my ego is going, come on, I know the answers here, and I want to tell them the answers. And maybe there might be a time and place to do that as well. I'm never saying you can't go, you know what, that stuff you talked about with the foam roller, bollocks, however you communicate it. Some clients might do well on that. So, yeah.
I get triggered. I do.
Do you?
I do get triggered.
How do you respond to the trigger, though?
I have to take a minute. So I get triggered when it's...
Can people see it in your face, Dan? They can be like,
Probably.
he's triggered.
No!
He's pissed off again. Yeah. Third time today.
It depends, and it depends. I think where I get more frustrated with maybe people I've trained for a longer period of time. I feel I have that relationship with. They maybe know some of the areas that I've studied and been interested in. That less than a new client, because they have no idea. As you said, I have no credibility then. They're coming in as a new client. They don't know what I've studied in the past. They know my skill set is as a personal trainer, hopefully, because that's what they've come in to see me for. But they don't know if I know anything about pain science or mechanics or anything like that. So I then get less triggered because I'm like, well, that's fair enough. We've still got to build this relationship. I sometimes find it frustrating when I've helped people in pain, let's say. They know it's an area that I'm interested in. They know I've helped people after surgery. So it's an ego thing. I realise this as I'm saying it. They know I've helped people with surgery and post-surgery. Not with surgery. Don't want me doing your surgery. But post-surgery.
Definitely not, mate.
Dan's doing my surgery next week.
What? Yeah, he's qualified then.
He's going to sort my knee out, actually. Give me a new patella. And then I find that they go and see another medical professional and they come back in and it's an outdated belief or something like that. That then I find... Oh, I broke my pen. I have to then just take a minute. First of all, let them finish what they're saying, being the first thing, because I didn't always do that. I was like, let me cut you off, mate. Or I see where this sentence is going. I let them finish what they're saying. Understand how they've come to that conclusion and where they've got that conclusion from. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned, if we're talking about when clients are coming with, say, messaging from other professionals, is this isn't the client's message. This is something that they've been told by another professional, be it fitness or medical, and then they're coming and reiterating to you. And sometimes clients don't even get right what has been said to them in terms of they haven't listened to it, processed it, just taken the bits they want. So I'm aware that actually as they're talking to me about it, this isn't their thing that they've come up with. If they've come from medical professionals, that medical professionals. So it's, and as you say, in the back of the mind, it's always got to be, and I say this, and you have to continually work on it. I know I do. What's best for the client to help them move forward? And if you get that in the back of your mind, then I find it's less of an issue in terms of your ego. It's a bit like when you go into a meeting or conversation. If you know what you're trying to get out of that conversation, then it can be far easier. So I get triggered. And I find it, but letting them and understanding their understanding can be quite nice.
Yeah, it's a really good way to explore things. I mean, there's so many directions to go down from what you just said there. I think remembering that it is about the client and not about us.
Yeah.
And I say remembering, we need to, in the moment,
Just be,
think,
yeah.
is this about me wanting to get my point across? Or is it about me trying to help the client explore what they're trying to say? And as you said, the only way we can do that is by not cutting them off. Let them explore that fully, because sometimes as they explore stuff, they start to talk themselves out of it potentially. And not cutting them off, we call that the righting reflex. So you go, right, I'm going to ball cut off, let me tell you that you're wrong. And that doesn't work. So we're trying to help the client develop a better understanding for themselves, and hopefully through good communication we can start to guide them down maybe a more helpful path. Now, it depends on where the beliefs come from. It depends on how strong the belief has been held and how much they relate to it, how much they identify with it. So an example that I used with you off air, hopefully we get a chance to use a few examples today, was the one I mentioned to you about a client this morning.
Yeah.
And she came in, chatted about nutrition, chatted about breakfast, and saying that she really was struggling with breakfast but finding it a bit stressful about what to eat and stuff. And I just said to her, well, why is breakfast so important to you? And she said to me, well, to be honest with you, James, it's because I've heard that it brings up that metabolism. It helps get the metabolism going in the morning, and it helps burn fat more effectively and stuff like that. So straight away in my head, and hopefully most personal trainers listening now realise that is bollocks.
Yeah.
But I'm old enough to realise where that comes from.
Yeah.
Now, I was told that maybe 20 years ago, definitely maybe 15, 20 years ago, that was a bit of a thing within the industry and a thing within the media. So, and she's similar to my age, a little bit older than me, so we're kind of similar ages. So I understood that. In my head, I empathised. And then I said, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that, about the metabolism thing? And as she was exploring it, she was starting to doubt herself and go, I'm not actually too sure what I've heard that. I'm not actually too sure on that. So she clearly didn't hold the belief that tightly. So as I was assessing that, I knew I could come in a little bit stronger. It wasn't tightly held. She wasn't too resistant with it. So I just went, cool, well, actually, I understand what you're saying there. I understand where it comes from. But right now, what science has told us is that makes no difference to your metabolism whatsoever. And sometimes actually having a bit of time without food can be beneficial. So don't worry about it. And she was like, oh, brilliant, thanks, James. That's all I needed to hear. And sometimes that's a very simple example, but it's about reading the person. If she seemed to be really dogmatic about it, me going straight in with that would have been two people butting heads, and maybe we wouldn't have got anywhere. So I think it's a skill to learn to communicate better, listen better, to help guide your client down a more helpful path of their beliefs.
Yeah, I think some of the examples that I see a lot comes from physios and osteos. And physios and osteos don't really understand exercise in the main. There are some that, of course, do, that have been fitness professionals interested in training themselves. And they send across exercises. So they diagnose what they think is going on, and then send across with that client a load of exercises that actually, if you understand exercise, is doing the exact opposite of what they think it's doing. And that can be quite a difficult thing, a conversation to have with maybe the medical professional, but certainly with your client, because in that example, which can be quite frustrating, especially someone who is passionate about mechanics and invested a lot in mechanics and studied a lot of mechanics and can understand what's going on within movement, when then someone comes across with this idea around, all right, I'm not there to diagnose what's going on with the client if they're injured or in pain, but I can tell you that with your diagnosis, the exercise that you've sent across, not the client, the medical professional, that's not doing what you think it's doing. That can be quite frustrating, but it's hard for me then to communicate with the client, because the client will tend to see that the medical professional is more highly qualified than you, therefore they're just coming for you to get them to do what the medical professional has told them to. And so then actually being able to work that client to communicate with them, or to give them some of what maybe the medical professional has given them, so that they think, okay, they are listening to the medical professional, they understand, but then you can also shimmy in some of the stuff that you think can help with that diagnosis. That's some of the stuff that I see a lot with outdated beliefs coming from that area, or maybe a not understanding of exercise, and trying to understand that in that moment that client's in pain or injured and they want to get back to what they want to do, and actually maybe you have a better idea of how to go about that. But it's the communication with the client, because if you try and, I've found this personally, that if you try and go against the medical profession, they will tend to always hold the medical profession that they know everything. So they know everything about exercise as well, and it's then how we communicate. It can also be a really difficult conversation if the physio or osteo medical professional gets involved and they want to talk to you. That can be a difficult conversation to navigate as well. Because really, we want to build a good rapport with these people and get the right outcome for the client.
Yeah, you're right, mate. I think rapport's key, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And developing rapport, developing trust, maybe developing some respect and credibility with your client. And yeah, what a challenging situation to be in, where you've got this program with a client and they've got a bit of an injury and they feel more comfortable to go and see a physio or osteo. It's totally fine. There's a time and a place for everything. I'm not saying PTs can do everything.
No.
They come back and they've got some advice that maybe isn't particularly helpful. You're like, well, actually, the exercises that they've been given isn't really working the muscles that they think they are, or they're really low grade. And sometimes there's a spectrum of what PTs might do. One side of the spectrum is like, well, that's bollocks. We'll do it my way or the highway. Let's not even, the physio's chatting shit. This is what you need to do. Bit dangerous to go there, potentially. At the other end of the spectrum is to go, okay, what's he told you? Okay, well, we'll just do all that. I think what you're saying there, mate, is there's a middle ground to go, okay, again, we go back to the Aristotle quote. It's a mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought and not have to accept it. So I can entertain that. I don't have to accept everything that physio is saying, but I at least need to entertain it because there's another perspective. And guess what? We'll talk about this later, but we all have our own biases.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean all of our beliefs are perfect either. So we've got to be very self-aware there. And I can just take that on board and go, okay, well, can we integrate some of that into training? Can we understand a bit more about what the client understands? I'm really concerned what the client thinks. What do you think about what the physio said? And if I've got clients I've trained for years, generally they're a bit more knowledgeable. Some of them will come into me and say, actually, what the physio said, I disagree with, which is sometimes quite useful that they say that. And sometimes they can go, actually, he's giving me a different perspective. I'm like, okay, let me understand that. I can understand that perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got this wrong for many years. I'm still trying to get better at it. But this is a very important conversation today. Because I think we're talking a lot about rehab now because you and me are quite into it, but also nutrition is going to be a massive one here.
Yeah.
Clients will come in with loads of outdated, and I alluded to one a second ago, loads of outdated nutritional stuff. Friends, family, the media, and of course other professionals
Google
as well. Google, social media, loads of bullshit out there. You know, we say we talk about calling bullshit all the time, but saying that to a client isn't necessarily helpful. How do we start to have these conversations with the general population? And as you said earlier, why should they know any better? If they're following someone on social media and talking to something about the gut or fat loss or muscle building, they get the mercy of whatever they get told, because maybe they haven't been taught critical thinking. They haven't been told that what they're going to work with. We all had to start somewhere, didn't we?
Did you see the guest that Stephen Bartlett had on?
So Dr. Timothy Spector.
Now I haven't I haven't listened yet. I am going to listen.
Glad you brought this one up, actually, mate.
But I saw Lane Norton, who this is why it was brought to my attention, because Lane Norton was like chatting bullshit. He did almost like an Adam Meakin style bullshit thing. So I haven't. Have you listened to this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting because I haven't seen the whole context. I've just seen the clip where basically he's saying that it's not a matter of calorie balance, or is he saying that counting calories doesn't necessarily?
Okay, so the guys listening might have listened to the podcast with Timothy Spector, a very well-known, renowned gut specialist, to simplify it. And I've read some of his books as well.
Yeah.
He's got a book called The Diet Myth, and he's into studying the gut microbiome, and researching it quite heavily. So that's a bit of an idea on who he is, first of all. And there's a diverse conversation around nutrition with Stephen Bartlett. And they're chatting a lot about optimising gut health, optimising the gut microbiome, but also, from what he said there, and Ben Coomber also called him out on this, he said calories don't matter. And some clients have come in with that as well. This is a really good example. So I always say, look, we need to contextualise this. We need to remember, where is the source of the information coming from? What's that individual's bias? He's not an exercise professional. He's not studied fat loss and muscle growth. He studied gut and human health. Great, we can take that on board, but he's not a personal trainer. He's not an exercise specialist. He's not a nutritionist. He's a fantastic at the gut. And take that on board. And when it comes to optimising human health, and I've banged on about the gut for the last decade, I think it's a fascinating area and one that all trainers need to get knowledge on. But let's not then take all of that what that person said as gospel. We can be, no matter who it is, we can be a bit critical to go, I get that, but there's enough, calories do matter. They do for body composition. We know that, and our clients might not, and they might come in and then we can go, no, say now, calories matter. So that's a very good example, Dan, because the Game Changers documentary, whatever, clients will get hold of that. How do they fucking know?
Well, they don't. But
And
that's why
they're going to come to you, the coach, with this stuff, and you're going to have this conversation with them.
he must know that calories count. That calories dictate whether you're going to lose weight. As an overarching thing, as a foundation, you have to be. The law of thermodynamic dictates.
He doesn't mention that in his book. And in that, and that's from my knowledge of his
Because I will listen to the
he's
podcast
never,
as
yeah,
well.
and the book, the Diet Myth, really worth listening to. Also, going on the belief side, it's good because I don't agree with everything.
Yeah.
Even more reason I should listen to it.
Yeah. Which is what I
great
always
stuff,
yeah,
but also
yeah.
some of it I'm a bit like I see it a little bit differently. That's helping me critically think. I can't just listen to people like Lane Norton, people that I agree with more, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got to listen to someone else who might challenge my bias. That's good. So, we have to really be open-minded as personal trainers. Listen to it. Don't shut off to it either. It's uncomfortable. What if we could just try the hat on? What if calories didn't matter? Now, I'm not saying that is the case. It's uncomfortable just to try it on.
Yeah.
But most people won't do that. They'll be very rigid in their beliefs. Just try it. Okay, cool. Actually, there's some evidence there, some anecdotal stuff. I've worked it out. I'm pretty sure they do matter. But at least I've entertained the fact they might not do. At least entertain it. That's a healthy mindset.
So in the thing, he does actually say in this context that to lose weight, calories don't matter.
I can't remember exactly, mate. So I don't know.
Which is why I want to check with you, because
he does say that calories don't matter. I can't remember
because then if it's like calories don't matter.
He also said exercise isn't good for fat loss or weight loss. You're like, well, exercise burns off calories, so that's part of your calorie expenditure. But you could say, is it not the best thing for weight loss? Yes, if you look at total daily calorie expenditure, we know exercise is it's the smallest.
If you've got NEAT
but it does not make a difference.
No,
but you can people
but
go.
I can understand more.
People will hear that. Yeah, but it's still that isn't strictly right.
No, I can understand
because it's another component.
Because do you need to exercise? Do you need to exercise to lose weight? The answer is no.
No.
But there's many other benefits. Plus, it does help. Plus, there's loads of other benefits. But at least there is and I will listen to it, which is why I asked you at the start if you'd listen to it, and then. I'm wary that by just taking a sound bite and critiquing that, I was wary. I didn't want to just go in on it, which is why I'm going to listen to it, because he might have been talking in a different context.
And what we need to be really, and this is so important, such an important point, is that we need to get context. And this is why, if I'm listening to a podcast, it's also quite useful if I've heard a book of theirs, or I've heard more. Even a podcast doesn't tell you everything, but the good thing about these long form podcasts, you get at least an hour to an hour and a half of context. That really helps.
Yeah.
And then if you've got a book to go off as well, I said that I'm sure it's a Diet Myth. I'm pretty 90%, 95% sure. That's good to listen to. And there's some stuff that came out and made me think a little bit and reflect a little bit and go, actually, am I getting enough plant sources? Probably not. You know what? Probably up to about 30 different plant sources a week. I'm getting about 20. So actually, since listening to that podcast, I've made some adjustments with my own nutrition by being open-minded. But I could be triggered off one sentence and shut off from everything. Very few people are chatting all bullshit or all truth.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between is often where it's at. Our beliefs aren't all wrong, but our beliefs aren't all true.
Yeah. I suppose that is, and I will listen to it, if he has said calories don't matter if your goal is weight loss, that is wrong, because the law of thermodynamics dictates that, of course, energy, in terms of energy transfer, that is wrong. So it's not even an opinion-based thing. But I will listen to the rest of the podcast, because as you say, even if he did say that, he is wrong, but that doesn't mean there's not loads of other value within the podcast itself in terms of where his specialist area is. I would just find it strange that a doctor who studies the gut doesn't understand that calories, when it comes to weight loss or weight gain, it is unfortunately.
I mean, we could go down these rabbit holes, couldn't we? We can really shake into it. Where's that belief come from? Why do you think that? What evidence have you got? You could really, again, what I'm trying to do is, Adam's talking now, be a good critical thinker, even with a belief like calories in, calories out thing. Trying to go, okay, can I at least entertain it, James? Because I'm shutting down from everything. At least if I entertain it, I don't have to change my belief, but at least entertain it. There'll be things that personal trainers are so ingrained about with nutrition, exercise. I'm not saying you have to change your mind, but if that belief becomes so cemented and you don't even entertain another perspective, no matter how hard it might be, there's things that really go well against your beliefs. You're not gonna grow as much.
What if it's a fact?
It's fact. Well, I mean, again, every fact can be. You could go down a whole rabbit hole.
You can go back to my analogy about the flat Earth, right?
Exactly, mate. This is what I mean. I'm very careful about facts now, just from years of studying, years of critical thinkers, years of having my beliefs changed. I'm very aware that even though I've been in the industry 15 years, I've seen so many changes in another decade or two, I'm sure I'll look back now with things that I say and go, actually, James, that wasn't right. So, yeah, you know, there are science. I understand there is science, and I understand that. But also, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to stay as open-minded as I can, mate. And no matter how uncomfortable it is for me, and that's not me trying to sit on the fence, it can sound like it is. It's just me to go, things are going to change with science and knowledge. So let's have a belief, let's see it. But maybe things will change over the next few decades. If you said to someone, when they thought the earth was flat, the earth is round, they'd be like, no way, this is a fact. Such a good example that you used a few podcasts ago. So
the example I used, by the way, if you haven't heard it, was lots of people always say, once upon a time, the greatest minds on the earth always thought it was flat, and people just throw that around. But actually, what that sentence is actually saying is, if all the greatest minds in the world at one point thought something and they were all wrong, then could it happen again?
I just want to give another example there as well, not being too specific, I don't want to name names, but starting out in the industry, I went on a lot of seminars. I did some quite big seminars with big names in the industry now. And they were very scientific, and they were very kind of like, whoa. And tell you what, if I went back and did that now, you'd be like, what are they talking about? And that's not throwing it out there. That's with exercise, that's with movement, that's with nutrition, areas that I went really deep in. They paid a lot of money to go on the top seminars at the time. And again, this is going back, I was looking at some of my old emails the other day actually, probably a good maybe 12 years ago. I was loving it. And at the time that was great with, talking about insulin and the science of insulin and blah, 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 blah. We think about things very differently now, even though that was scientific then. So because even though I see 15 years is still a very short amount of time, I've seen some changes in my beliefs and how I think about things. And in the people that certain people in our industry might put these people on a pedestal, their beliefs have changed. They really have. But at the time, they were facts, mate. Yeah. And we all believed it as an industry. So I've been around long enough to see that change. And guess what? I'm not going to sit here chatting to you today going, yeah, mate, we've got the answers now. Hopefully you and me in 12 years' time will have more open-minded conversations and we'll both grow and develop our thought processes. I know I'm passionate about that, and I think you are as well.
Yeah, I won't sit on the fence with this one though. I'm pretty confident that the law of thermodynamics will stand and dictate that it's calories, not unfortunately, it's calories that dictate whether you gain weight or lose weight over a period of time.
And I'm not saying there isn't, and I'm saying right now, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I'm also open to the fact that maybe things can change.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like Einstein stuff and gravity and all that sort of things, you could go down whole rabbit holes in this and do it beliefs. But let's put ourselves out the belief rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
The key is to be open-minded and be confident in what you know. If I've got a client who wants to lose weight, I know that you probably need to burn enough more calories than you're taking in. It's common sense, really. But maybe there's different ways to slice and dice that. And just be open-minded with it, really. No matter how, even if it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy. It's crazy. Because I say that because in rehab, I've heard some incredible things over the years. Actually, I have to at least entertain, because the client entertains it. If I don't, the conversation will go downhill. So there can be stuff like spiritual stuff or certain magical healings. Clients have got they feel better for it.
Yeah.
So I have to, at least in my scientific brain, try and get on their camp and their side.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I'm not even absorbing what they're saying, and then the conversation doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Very difficult to do because some of the stuff you're going to hear.
Mate, it goes,
well, yeah. If you've been around long enough, you're going to have heard everything.
Yeah.
And just at least have the open mindset to it, because the world is a weird and wonderful place, and human beings are very complex. So.
Yeah. And they believe some bullshit. There might not be bullshit.
Who knows, mate?
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's bullshit. But I will listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Because as you say quite rightly, and you realise it more as you get older, very few people are all bullshit and very few people are all truth. So it's actually, there's normally in most conversations, there's some good quality stuff you can take away, and there may be some stuff you can maybe that isn't quite as worthwhile you taking away. But you need to understand the context of the conversation. I mean, fucking pens on its arse, mate. And especially the context thing, I think is so important, because as I've spoken about on here a lot of the time, I've loved podcasts for a long time, and one of the ones I've listened to for a long time is Joe Rogan. And obviously that's very long form content. We're talking between 2 and 4 hours. So when you've listened to a lot of that stuff, listen to a lot of him, obviously it's guests, but you listen to a lot of him, and you've listened to 50, 100 of those podcasts, you get a pretty good feel for their thought processes on a lot of things. And one of the things that he says a lot is, you're right to change your mind on things, as you get more knowledgeable on it and as research and data changes, you have the right, and you should change your mind as you see good quality arguments and evidence that maybe contradict you.
But that's very uncomfortable for people to do. Like if I look at, like, use example of other professionals, I know professionals, and you do as well, who've saying the same stuff.
Yeah.
Over, I'm talking about like a decade.
Yeah.
Same stuff. That's a good example of how hard it is to change your beliefs.
Someone's like 40 years, and it's one of those things where if you still think exactly the same, and there will be some stuff that probably does run as a common theme throughout because it doesn't change. But if you're still doing things exactly the way you are, then have you progressed? If you've done the same thing for 40 years without progressing, have you got 40 years experience, or are you just 40 years out of date? Now, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. If you've got experience and you've got anecdotal evidence, but if you haven't been on a single course in 40 years, you're out of date. So that's incredibly hard to deal with as well, because sometimes people see experience as the main thing. And of course, experience is hugely important. But I think experience needs to go along with still being passionate and still being up to date with the information that's coming out now, as well as the experience of working with people and having anecdotal evidence of what's worked for you, and sort of blending it all together, I think is going to give you probably the best chance to be really good at what you do. I think just relying on experience and not updating isn't going to be a winner. And what would be the opposite of that? And if you've just got science but you've never actually applied it to anyone, then that's probably not going to be the winner either. You need the both to be a good trainer and a coach. And of course, you can't buy time. Experience just has to happen, right, as you go through. But yeah, and I thought it was interesting, and I will listen to the podcasts. And to go back to that Joe Rogan point, it's funny when you get people who have, say, opinions on him, who clearly have never listened to a single podcast. So it's like, and this is the point I want to go back to, which is why I brought up that one with Stephen Bartlett, is because, okay, so I respect Lane Norton. I tend to agree with what he says. And who's the other? Ben Coomber. You said he called him out as well. So my natural bias is go, well, these boys have listened to it. They know their shit as far as I'm concerned. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But in order for me to have a well-rounded opinion on that, I need to listen to it and understand the context of what he's saying as a whole conversation.
What I'd love now if he comes back.
Yeah.
I'd love a conversation, because I think when people sit in camps, I believe this, I believe that. I'd love a, again,
how does Stephen Bartlett react in that?
Oh, he doesn't have. He just was like gospel. Yeah, soaks it in.
So does Stephen, obviously, because Stephen's not a fitness professional anyway.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But he's not necessarily there to challenge people. He's inviting them on.
But he's very open at podcasts that he doesn't know anything about nutrition. So
right.
Very, very open on that. But I think what's great is to have these conversations. I'd love to hear these conversations between two educated people, and we've mentioned this before. That'd be really, really good. I think what I'd be interested in here, mate, is to get a bit more. What's the right word? I don't, not going to use context, just want the trainers listening to kind of get an idea of how you might handle this situation. So if you've got a client, I know you've had plenty of clients throughout the years who've come in with unhelpful beliefs. Maybe we've touched on it already today, but I think it'd be quite nice to get almost like a little mini case study of just how you might, if you can think of an example, or hypothetically, how you might go about handling it now, maybe as opposed to where you would have done previously.
I've got an example of a good one and a bad one.
Cool, okay.
I'll give you the one I fucked up, which is my cheese story.
Oh, we've done that one, haven't we?
I've done my cheese story, but I'll reiterate it. So I had a client that once came in. She's a client for a long period of time, and she was of the mindset that if she ate cheese, it turned to fat. That's it. So if she ate cheese, it turned to fat. And I think we can all be pretty comfortable with that's not true. So... But the way I went about the conversation, because what I actually wanted for her in that was, she likes cheese and she wants it as part of it. She's not smash cheese all the time, but she likes a bit of cheese at the weekend. She likes the cheese. What I was trying to say is, we can still get where we want to go, and you can still have this food that you enjoy at the weekend if you want some. So I was doing it from a good place. I was trying to get her to go, you don't need to give this up. But she bailed down. As soon as I ate cheese, I can feel it. I can feel it on me, sort of thing. And so I just told her she was wrong. And so at that time I dealt with it in the wrong way. And I knew I dealt with it wrong, because we ended up not literally headbutting, but we were both just pissed off. Because in my mind, I'm the professional here. I'm one that studied this. You've told me something that's bollocks, and I'm telling you this so that you can enjoy your cheese. So listen to this. But she had this quite deep-rooted belief. And because I didn't start to peel it apart in the right way and understanding of why she thought that, how she felt like that, had she ever thought that might not be the case, it meant that she shut down to what I was saying, and I have to be honest, I shut down to what she was saying, because I was like, well, how can you not believe me? I'm the one that knows this. So that was where I dealt with it very badly. Where I dealt with it much better was a client who, much more recently, again a long-term client, and again it came from a similar place. She was talking about sweets and puddings and things, and she's someone that's very lean. She's in great shape, and she, again, my point was coming. I said, well, do you enjoy that sort of stuff? And she said, yeah, but I can't eat it, and I shouldn't eat it. So that, again, I like to think it was coming from a good place. So, well, actually, can we have a discussion about this, which means you're still going to be in great shape, but you can enjoy these. But she just got into her head that sugar is the devil. She shouldn't have any sugar, and if she had any sugar, she's going to start to put on weight. But she was quite, as we started to open up the conversation, she was quite comfortable with the fact. She hasn't eaten these sort of things in a long time. She doesn't really miss it. She doesn't really care. She likes her diet. She likes her life. She's incredibly fit and healthy. So as we got into this conversation, I realised I'm going into an area that I don't need to go into. She's not asking for advice on this. I'm giving unsolicited advice. There was a moment when, because I was the fitness professional, I felt like I should be giving it. She wasn't asking for advice. We were just chatting away. And so being sort of aware of this allowed me just to draw myself out of this conversation that I didn't need to go into. So two quite similar things, probably 5 or 6 years apart, as I've grown and matured and find it ever so slightly easier to part my ego, I was able to understand what the client wanted from that. I know I probably haven't given you an example yet of actually... So I suppose another example you might want is actually where have I gone into a conversation and actually, over a period of time, changed someone's mind.
And that would be useful as well for the trainers.
Because you know what I mean?
If you've got some examples there.
Because the reason I'm saying that is because although we're saying we want to understand everything, where they come from, sometimes there is an unhelpful belief that is actually holding you back and that we're going to need to unpeel, and that we are at some point, confront might feel like a too strong a word, but at some point it might need to be that in order to actually overcome it. I would say probably the ones I've found there is probably lower back pain, in terms of people actually having beliefs that are actually almost counterproductive. And so it's a point of, we actually need to have a discussion around what your feeling is about non-specific lower back pain, where they think they're tight and weak and, you know, they shouldn't move. You know, if they should be incredibly protective, and, you know, if your back's bad, doctors used to say in the 70s and 80s, you just need to go and lie down and not move, which is funny because when you think about it, on one level it makes sense, you're in pain so don't move. On the upside, if your back's stiff and you don't want it to be stiff anymore, then probably movement is going to be the antidote to that. So it's creating an environment where we can start to get them moving, I'd probably say, is where... You asked me how I opened that conversation.
Yeah, it's just how you might explore it.
So,
I mean, these are obviously...
I can tell you the questions I would ask is in terms of how has what you've done previously helped? Because, you know, if someone's got non-specific lower back pain, and obviously the red flags, because they've probably been a senior medical professional, so we know it's not a red flag thing, and it keeps coming back, then you can open up, but they feel that it's what helps, we can open up the conversation of, well, if this is, you think, the right thing to help with your non-specific lower back pain, why do you keep getting pain? Is this, do you think, maybe a long-term thing that's going to help if it doesn't allow you to actually have long-term progress? So it'll be opening up a conversation and also having an opportunity to actually, as you say, experience is actually what really helps someone overcome an unhelpful belief. So actually, is there some things I can do in the studio which really do help and they can see some progress from? What about you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always context, and the answer is always it depends. But I think the word you've used a couple of times today is understanding, helping the client understand the belief a little bit more, and us trying to understand the client a little bit more before we even decide as and when or how we're going to challenge the belief. If what we're talking about here is limiting beliefs, unhelpful ones that are holding people back. An example that you've used there is in rehab, back pain, really, really common. If they've got a belief system that's holding them back, you know what, I'm weak, I'm fragile, I can't bend my spine, I'm out of a line, I'm twisted and whatever. Those can really lead to a lot of vulnerability. Those beliefs they're limiting if they influence people's behaviours. So if your client believes that, how are they going to behave? Are they going to get back to exercise? Are they going to get back to meaningful activity? Are they even going to move their spine? Maybe the answer is no. And if that isn't going to be the case, their outcomes, especially long-term outcomes, are going to be really poor. So an example there, as you're putting, is create new experiences. And the great thing as an exercise professional, we get to do that. As long as we've got our beliefs in as updated as we can do, and we've listened to some stuff, Ben Cormack and Adam Meekins are two great resources, and Greg Lehman, they would be my top three, because they have got, again, as far as I'm concerned, really up-to-date beliefs around pain, rehabilitation, especially about back pain as well. So as fitness professionals, we can learn a lot about these people who are more knowledgeable and more specialised, and we can put that into our work essentially. But it still comes down to who's in front of us every single time. And I might have someone who's really fragile. Maybe that isn't the moment to even challenge a belief. Maybe it's, I go along with it today, and maybe I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, maybe we'll just keep you in a position that feels a bit more safe, which I've had to do before. Or maybe, like I've already alluded to, maybe they come in a bit more relaxed and they're a bit more open-minded, and they know that I specialise in it, and they're happy to be challenged a little bit more. So it really depends on the person. But we have to put ourselves in a calm place, first of all. Probably likely to be triggered if it's something we're passionate about. Also, question our own belief. Like, is my belief outdated? Am I up to date with the research here? If not, be aware of that. Maybe go away and research it more. And then go, okay, all I'm thinking about right now is curiosity. Just think in your head, I need to play curiosity. Not problem solver yet. Not writing reflex yet. Not call bullshit yet. I'm curious. I'm really interested in that. Could you just tell me a little bit more about the kind of the things you said about your hips there? Just so, and then you get to understand where the client's coming from, and then you decide where to pitch your education and how much to challenge. So it's hard to give 100% specifics unless you and me did like a role play, which we do role plays on our seminar, by the way, to plug that.
It's just me and James acting all afternoon.
Yeah, acting all afternoon. That's all we do, just do loads of role plays. But role plays help kind of
they make a big difference.
They really help people. But yeah, it's curiosity, questions, and the question why is good if it's said in the right way. Quite careful with, why do you believe that?
Yeah.
So I'm curious why you believe that. Just by adding the word curious changes the words. Why do you believe that, Dan? That can sound like I'm challenging it, but rather than that's really interesting you say that. I'm curious in why you think that. Just by reframing the question, that might change how you respond to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a really difficult one, but it's one you'll come up against a lot as well. And it's that ability to, first of all, as you say, to be aware enough to know whether you're up to date yourself, and realise that it can quite quickly slip you by. You call other people out of date, but if you haven't looked at it yourself for 5 or 6 years, actually you're getting more out of date than you think you are as well. You might be more up to date than the person that's giving the advice, but that doesn't mean you're completely up to date. And it's something that comes up a lot, and a lot of it is manage it, especially the nutrition one with clients. Exercise is, I think, slightly less so, because I don't know what you think, but a lot of people, as a personal trainer, people expect you to know about exercises, and so I found myself not very often challenged around exercises themselves. It's the stuff around that, around nutrition and pain and injury and stress or sleep and things that we're going to dip our toes into because we're going to need some knowledge around those areas. But I think nutrition is probably the one is that the one you found most of the years where people... And actually, I'd say pain and injury and nutrition are pretty much a draw, where I've had people come in and been triggered by them.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt going back to the debate thing, have you ever sat down with someone who's got a completely polar opposite view or an outdated view and had a conversation? Because
I don't know polar opposite, but yeah, definitely lots of outdated stuff all the time, and you have to pick and choose your battles, don't you? Really,
well, that is very true. So you pick every single one.
Oh, it's be here all day.
I'd be fucking stressful.
Yeah, it would be. I've got plenty. I mean, we've all got belief systems, and they're not all of us.
Yeah.
Not all of our beliefs are facts,
no
matter how much we like to think that they are. And our clients, true. The difficult thing is, our identity is fitness professional. And if you've worked hard in your education, hopefully you're a pretty good fitness professional. So when a client comes in with anything to do with health and exercise, our ears are perked up and we're like, right, I need to solve that. I need to give you the right answer. Maybe not. You'd spend the whole session just breaking down myths just on nutrition, not on anything else. So you have to kind of pick and choose and take your time with stuff. I've got things in the back of my head where I think that client's believed that for a while. And I've got a client I've trained for a good 3 or 4 months. I know she's got some outdated stuff with diet, but I'm kind of letting her roll with it at the moment. She's getting some results. I'm happy, and slowly, bit by bit, I'll probably look to kind of update some of those beliefs. But I still feel like there's a bit of credibility to go. I still feel like she needs to develop a better relationship with me, more trust, and then I'll find an opportunity maybe to work on some of those things. But it's not the end of the world if I don't get to everything. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And it is, I take that track a lot with clients now when they want to come in and lose weight. And one of the questions I'll ask is, what, if they've gone through some weight loss previously, what have they found that's been successful previously for them? Obviously, what they probably, in this specific example, they probably haven't found something that works long term for them, otherwise wouldn't need to be losing weight again. But what have they found that has worked previously? And I think that's sometimes a great place to start, because it allows them to start tweaking that, and then you can let them run with it for a couple of weeks and see how it's going, and then discuss and make a little tweak. I'm very much an advocate now within my training is less is more. So tweak the smallest dose that's going to have the biggest effect. So the smallest change that's going to have the biggest effect, if there's an obvious one of those, which I think it's going to be far more easy to stick to when you're building habits than big wholesale changes. A lot of trainers might find this in January. You find people wanting to make wholesale changes that client may stick to for 4 or 5 weeks, but it's unlikely to stick to long term. But I always describe it as having bullets in the belt when I'm talking to clients. So let's just change something, and let's run with that. Let's see how that works. You've changed that, the weight's come off for 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, now let's change something else. But it could be an old belief where they've come in and it's gone, right, what have you found has been successful before? Let's start there. They find it works successful, maybe they plateau, and then maybe I can give a little idea into maybe how we can overcome this plateau. So you're just changing things. Then maybe across the period of 3 or 4 or 5 months, you've just made one small little tweak alongside the tweaks that they've made. And over time, as they've experienced hopefully progression, then they're going to be more open to your ideas, aren't they? Once they've seen that it works.
Well, maybe the experiences you've given them have changed their beliefs.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, you're like, well, let's just try this. You know what? Maybe you could have some extra carbohydrates. And they've got you've got some sugar in your diet, but it's not the end of the world, and they still lose weight. They're like, I had some sugar and I had some carbohydrates and I got success. Maybe that starts to change their beliefs. I think this time of year, personal trainers are going to be presented with some new clients as well. Early on with a client, your goal is to develop a relationship. Your goal is to develop that kind of alliance together, to develop trust. If you're on that consultation and they're telling you stuff about their diet or whatever, and you're thinking, that's bollocks, and you're confronting them straight away. I might have done that when I was younger, by the way, but now I don't see that being helpful. As you said, what a good question. What's been successful for you now? Yeah, let's guide you on that path. And over time, I'm hoping to maybe re-educate the client, and everyone needs a bit of re-education in some shape or form, whether it's to do with their persistent pain or their weight loss or their lifestyle or how they think about things, and that just takes time. I've got clients literally I've trained for years, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and we're still working on things. You know, I had a client, I probably trained her for 8 years, and it's only last year that she had a bit of a mindset shift, like a deep mindset shift in her beliefs about her pain. No matter how much I'd told her stuff in the past, it didn't quite, the core of the belief never really changed. She kind of understood it like logically surface level. I'm getting quite deep now, but deep layer, she still thought I'm out of a line, my knee's twisted, my knee's that. The last 12 months about her knee and her back, really the way she handles her pain, thanks to years of new experiences with me, new experiences on her own, that belief system, that very stubborn belief system has changed gradually. But that took time. I've had to be patient with her. She's had to be patient with me in some shape or form. Because we've got such a good relationship and trust there, we can get to that stage. I'm not saying with a client it would take this long, but for her it just did. But what a place that she's in now.
Do you ever feel there's a time to create credibility by giving your point of view as a professional?
Massively, and I did that with her.
Yeah.
Massively, yeah. It's not always... You have to go... I haven't been able to take a softly approach with everyone. At some point, I've had to go, with this client.
Look here. Yeah.
No, I've sent her the Greg Lehman stuff.
Right.
And I've sent her the modern pain science stuff. I've talked about the courses that I've done. I've kind of, and this wasn't trying to do from an ego perspective. It's trying to do from a helping perspective. But I've had to confront it a little bit. But if I'm honest, if I reflect back on the last few years, I've had more success when actually I have gone a little bit more general. And when I was a bit too aggressive and a bit too confrontational, she was lovely and we had a lovely conversation about it. But if I look at her behaviours changed more effectively when we were a bit slower and more gentle with the belief as opposed to aggressive. Now, this is because the belief is very kind of deeply held. The example I used at the beginning of the podcast, very surface level belief. I can just go, bull, this is what the science says. I've trained her for 4 years. We've got good trust, easy. I'm talking about a top end example, which is very difficult for both of us to work through because persistent stubborn pain is very complex, can be very emotional, very traumatic for some people. So I reflect back on that now, and actually I was more aggressive at times and more gentle, and the last year when I was more gentle it led to better results. That's purely anecdotal because everyone's individual, so we won't always get it right. The key is just to keep going, keep working it, not in a button heads perspective, just in a, okay mate, I get that, and maybe we could just think about creating these new environments for you.
Yeah, because I think sometimes if you approach the conversation in hopefully the right way, you're going to want them at some point. If you're someone who is a professional in that area, you'd like to think they would ask your opinion on it. You want to understand from their point of view. But I think about this, if I switched it round, for me, at some point, I'd want the professional's point of view on it as well, based on their understanding and knowledge.
I mean, you're quite kind of that works quite well for you.
Yeah.
The client I'm talking about here is really interesting. She's a very quite emotionally vulnerable person.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with vulnerability, that's a.
It's going to be horses for courses,
but
isn't it?
If I had you, coming in,
but this is what it fucking is.
Well, I could be quite straight with you.
You could,
and that'd be fine, and I'd read that off you quite quickly. Brilliant, and we could have a conversation, and it's great. If you were, it doesn't matter what sex you are. If you just came in and you were just more of a vulnerable person, I could see that Dan's a bit more fragile. If I had that attitude with you, that's going to create the opposite effect. So really, this all comes down to reading people.
Yeah, because it is that
reading people.
There is sometimes it might not even need you to say something. Because, for instance, with weight loss, we've said this many times. Apart from the guy on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, we know that we're going to move a little bit more and we're going to try and eat a little bit less. We know it's more complex than that. I've got clients at the moment that it's more complex than that in terms of actually getting them to follow through and lose weight. One in particular I'm thinking of, and he perfectly understands the theory about what he needs to do, but the application of it, that's not quite so simple, and that can be a difficult journey for people. Yeah. So he knows that. So me telling him that doesn't help because he fucking knows that. So it's different conversations. But there's other circumstances where, and again, you're right, it's going to be the person you're talking to, but at some point you're going to need to have the knowledge and sometimes people. So if I take someone like myself, so I put myself in that situation, sometimes I'll need that person to show their credibility to me by showing they understand the subject. Now that doesn't mean they're just going to preach to me and I'm just going to have to take on every word they say. But then there's a point where you're like, okay, so what is it you do? What is it you think I should do? So here's what I think I should do, and I'm open to that conversation. But let's say it was you in that situation with your knowledge and expertise and understanding working with clients. What have you seen that's been successful with your clients, or what is your view on that as well?
Yeah, when we're dealing with beliefs as well, and outdated ones, we've got our internal beliefs of ourselves. Yeah. So you might have a client who's got some quite updated beliefs on nutrition because you've given him all the knowledge, you've given him that, and he's like, Dan, you're credible. Yeah, you've been doing this for a long time. I believe in what you say. I trust in what you say. But that internal belief system is incredibly outdated of how this individual, he or she views themselves. And then that might need to be confronted. You're like, well, this is all good. You understand this stuff. You understand calories and nutrition, but the belief in yourself, you don't really believe in yourself. And at some point as a coach, you might have to challenge that side of things as well. Yeah. The internal dialogue, which is we could do a whole podcast on that. Well,
that's why I've had to go with this other client. So it's not a question of, he's a super intelligent guy, fucking interesting. Pick his brain all down, so many different subjects. He understands why he's very overweight. He gets it. But the journey we're going to have to potentially go through to get the weight off has got nothing to do with his intelligence or understanding what he needs to do. It's working through why he struggles to implement it, you know, many other things that are going on for him. And I think that's an important, it's not necessarily the subject of today, but I think that's why it's important. When you hear people saying it's more than just calorie counting, it is once you put the individual in front of you. Yeah. So the overriding thing is going to be the calorie balance, but once you get the specificity of an individual in front of you, it becomes so much more than that because you're dealing with the person. And I've got an example of that at the moment where it is deep lying beliefs, it's the own things that he's got to work through. So yeah, went off on a bit of a tangent there. That'd be a good podcast to do, actually.
I think it would be. I mean, with sort of some of our parts sort of thing, and just one part is understanding things intellectually, but when we think about
which is interesting, isn't it?
Change.
When you think of a person,
look,
you can get something.
Lots of PTs now.
Yeah,
we'll have clients who are probably quite intelligent, intellectually understand what you're saying. They get that. But
probably better than you do.
Yeah. I fucking hell, pick that up quickly. I've got one client. Actually, let me stay on point before I go on this other slight tangent. And I fucking lost what I was going to say. Go for it, mate.
So the other one was got one client, but we were saying about people understanding it better than we do, or people picking up things and then not actually following through and actually being able to change. You've lost it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've lost it, but I'll go back to your
story.
This is about person-centered coaching and beliefs and stuff as well. I've got a client who's very academic. He loves numbers. He will go away and he will read Brad Schoenfield's research.
Fucking hell. That's heavy duty.
He loves it, mate. He'll go comments. I've read this and read that about nutrition. He just loves it. But he's not a fitness professional. Doesn't before seeing me, he didn't have any exercise or nutritional knowledge, but he just enjoys learning. So, what strategy I decided to use with him was he came in. We've trained together for years. He confident with my knowledge and what I can tell him about nutrition. I could have told him all the stuff that he's learned, by the way, but he needed to go and find out for himself. He needed to go away and read the research and experience it for himself and try things. And he would come in and we would talk about it each week and go, right, what have you learned? What do you want to try out this week? And someone who's had health issues and bad behaviours for a long time, allowing him to figure this out for himself, and he knows I've let him do this, he's enjoyed the experience of learning, he's enjoyed applying different strategies, and he's enjoyed finding the right path for him. I know that is a massive tangent from today, but this links into understanding the person, I think, and because I understand him, that works for him. I could tell him to blue in the face, this is what you need to do. That wouldn't work for this individual at all. He wants to go and experiment and learn and try things, and now he's found a kind of formula that works for him right now, but he'll also go and wants to do running, so he learns loads about the running research and stuff. It's fascinating training someone like that.
But it is because the vast majority of my clients are more intelligent than me.
Yeah,
so it's
mate, ain't difficult, mate.
They're way ahead of me.
You're saying that's a compliment to me.
But sometimes when you
believe it or not, mate, my clients, no, they're more intelligent.
Our listeners won't believe this. There's more intelligent, but they fucking hell, I've lost my point now. No, they fucking hell, this is a fucking shit show, isn't it? I was gonna
we're saying
what we do.
Well, we're talking about again.
Fucking hell, I feel like we're in the espresso martinis again.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah,
it's a lot of what we do for general population clients. They already know. They already know that if they're going to lose weight, they need to probably get some exercise, get some more movement in, maybe reduce some calories, or change foods that by default reduces the calories. You know, if they're lots of processed foods, lots of alcohol, not getting much vegetables in. They know that. They know if you said to most people, what food's healthy for you, they're probably going to start talking about vegetables and fruit, and they're probably going to talk about getting some protein in. Most people do now. The odd person will probably want to talk about vegetarian and vegan, but that's a different discussion. And then you get into most people know they probably don't sleep enough, and that sleep's good for them, even though they don't get enough sleep. So you look at a lot of the stuff that we're going to implement for general population clients to get them healthier. Most of them already fucking know that, you know, being highly stressed all the time isn't good for them. Not sleeping enough isn't good for them. Eating too many processed foods or constantly eating loads of sugar and not getting enough fruits and vegetables and quality proteins in isn't good for them. Know that exercise or just going out and being outside and walking and things is good for them. So our job in a lot of this, unless they want to get into the more nitty-gritty stuff like your client did, in reality they know a lot of that. What they're struggling to do is apply it. What they're struggling to do is go, right, I know this stuff, but with my current lifestyle and my job and my family and the way I like to do things and what I like to do, how do I get healthier within the context of me? But I know that, I mean, most people know the four areas I've just split up there. I think we can all say the general population know those areas in terms of an outline. These are things that if I improve, my health will probably improve. So our job really, as Michael said when we podcast him, we're agents of change. We're not necessarily tutoring and educating them all the time, but how can we get them to make the changes that will work for them to get them healthier? And so sometimes I think we try and go sometimes I feel like the industry tries to act like we're rocket scientists. When you get to the top level of anything, the nuances and the understanding you need to have obviously get higher. But for the general population client, if we can just do the simple things that most people know they need to do and get them to do it and do it well, you're going to get good results.
Yeah, maybe it's not about being a rocket scientist with the science. Maybe it's about being a rocket science with the person.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a better understanding of, I'm going to try and be as scientific with the person in front of me. And as we talked a lot about today, it's understanding that individual.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have outdated beliefs. Everyone's going to have things that are holding them back. That's part of being human. Academically understanding something is very different through implementing change. And as you said, change agents is a really good thing that Michael said. And I agree with, we are really ultimately a lot of personal trainers in this behaviour change world. We just don't talk a lot about
it is the behaviour change business, isn't it, really?
Hence why the second part of our seminar is all about communication.
Yeah.
And behaviour. To help people with behaviour change, we need to improve how we communicate and improve how we understand things. What I'm interested, mate, is for coaches listening, another question for you really is like, what would be some advice you might give them for when they're in this situation, when they've got other professionals, there might be previous fitness professionals, nutritionists, rehab professionals that have given the clients outdated advice. What advice would you give personal trainers and how best to handle that?
Bitch about the people that have given the advice and then just tell them how it actually fucking is.
Yeah, go, right, that person, chatting shit. I've always known a cowboy, mate. I thought every industry has cowboys, right? You've met one. Yeah.
Whenever you say cowboy, you remember one of your clients, plumber, and he was changing your bathroom, and you got a call every 2 minutes because whoever had done it previously before you bought the property, was just like, fucking cowboys! It always makes me think of it.
Yeah, one of my clients did redo a bathroom.
Legendary client, hilarious client.
An old flat of mine, and he's a very good plumber, he's very good at his job, and unfortunately the people who put the plumbing in before, I've done a bit of botch job. No, I don't know. I have no idea about plumbing. And he was pulling it up, and he thought, well, I need to tell James. So I was leaving work and getting these messages from him going, fucking hell, mate, you're not going to believe this. Basically telling me it's going to cost me more money, basically. It's going to cost you another £1,000, mate. It's just cowboys.
Whenever you say cowboys, it just reminds me of that story.
Yeah, cowboys.
It's fucking hilarious. On a serious one, I suppose where that conversation is most difficult if they've respected that fitness professional, so maybe they've come to you because they've moved or because the fitness professional stopped or moved away, so the relationship hasn't been it's ended because it's had to sort of thing, and then they've come to you. And I think the way that I now deal with that is understanding how helpful that's been for them. So if it's something nutritionally or even with a training thing, the training thing is actually slightly easier because unless something's going to hurt them, the first question we're going to discuss is, well, did you enjoy that form of training? First things first, did you enjoy that form of training? If I feel that there's something else that I might need to implement that might be slightly better towards moving them to their goal, then you can say, that's cool, you enjoy this style of training. I definitely think we should keep some of that in there because you enjoy it. But actually, I think moving towards your goal, it'd be nice if we get a little bit of this in as well. So you're open to what they enjoy and where they've got results previously, but then you're also giving a little bit of, there's a couple of things that I'd like to put in there to help you move towards your goal. So the training side of the thing I find a little bit easier. As I said, people tend to be less challenging on the training, the exercise side of things. In terms of nutritionally, I do find I don't get triggered in that instance, but again, it would just be opening up the conversation to understand, has that got them success? Why do they feel like that? Those sort of really good open questions where they can explain to me what their thinking is. And again, it comes back to it, if it's unhelpful. If it's not unhelpful, they've got success from it and it's not going to move them away from their goal. I'm not sort of egotistical enough to think that all my clients should do the way that I want them to do it and I have one specific way. So if a client comes in from someone else, are you talking about if it's real bullshit though?
No, I don't mean
just in general.
Just general stuff.
Yeah, for me, if they've come over to me and there's some stuff I don't agree with, there's some stuff that I wouldn't do it that way, but there's nothing wrong with it. They quite enjoy doing it. They've got good results. I'm not going to change it just because they've come from another fitness professional to me. Just throw the baby out of the bathwater and just be like, right, we've got to change everything because you changed your trainer now. If something's working for them and they've come to me, then we can pretty much carry on as they were, so to speak, unless I feel it was something particularly unhelpful. But then that's going to again be conversations over a period of time.
Yeah.
And it's if they invite me into the conversation. Because sometimes a client will come across and they'll say, I was doing this with my old trainer, what do you think? And they open the door for you to go, it's, as you say, don't shut that down, but also say, well, actually, some of the stuff I've seen more recently would lead us to believe this might be a good way of doing it. So then see how they react to that. But yeah, not shut it down. Lift the Bar did something, well, they do lots of good stuff. They did something about ruining a consultation, and lots of trainers ruin consultations by maybe someone doing something well, saying they enjoyed something, like this nutritional way of doing things got me some really good results, and then within the consultation you shutting that down for fucking no reason. We've all been there. But actually, if it's not doing any harm, carry on.
Yeah, definitely. Like the consultation things, what I mentioned earlier. Yeah, 100%. It's build a relationship before anything else. Relationship building is the most important thing. Yeah, I mean, I think today was really important because this is something that every fitness professional, everyone, you're guaranteed to come across clients who have unhelpful, outdated beliefs from the media, friends, family, other professionals, whatever. It's going to happen. And how you start to have those conversations is difficult. It's really, really hard. You probably don't want to be all on the unhelpful side. You probably don't all want to be on your side. You've just got to try and find this middle ground, and how that will look will be very different. But I think it's really important.
You can even get triggered by other fitness professionals that you actually agree with the way they implement things.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've got trainers that I see around on social media or just around, and I'm like, we're singing off the same hymn sheet, but I don't like the way you implement it.
Yeah.
And so you'll find that a lot, and you'll see when Paul talks about mechanics, and I'm of agreement with Paul as well, the way that some people talk about mechanics switches other trainers off to it, which can be really frustrating as someone who's passionate about it and see how helpful it can be within your training. When you see some people and the way they put it out, they're teaching the wrong thing, but the way they put it across is overly complicated and switches people off. So it could be that you actually agree with someone and actually you just disagree with the way you'd implement it. So there'll be these sort of situations all over the place, and it's really as coaches and trainers how we build rapport with people, because what you don't want to be is a little island on your own telling everyone to fuck off. Even when you disagree with them, you still want to open rapport so that you can have conversations going forward with them, because as you said earlier, there'll still be those people that you disagree with that actually has got some really good stuff that you can pick up from them.
They've got something. Yeah, we need that psychological flexibility.
Yeah.
So important. If you don't have that flexibility, then it's going to be very difficult just to develop relationships with other fitness professionals.
Yeah.
And hopefully you do have some different perspectives, but hopefully you have some of the same ones. Hopefully you can learn from each other. It's how we grow as an industry. But it can be difficult because we've all got our own biases.
Yeah.
And it's hard to it's hard to get out of those when we're sort of entrenched in them. So I think it's key. I suppose this links a little bit into a subject we've done a podcast on, which is critical thinking. And I suppose we all need to be very critical in our own thoughts, our own beliefs, our own perspectives, just to keep ourselves, I think, psychologically flexible, psychologically healthy, humble. Yeah, we talk a lot about humility. I think it's something that I've struggled with a lot in my 20s. I was very much kind of like, this is the right way because of the education that I had done, and now hopefully this comes across. I'm a little bit more open-minded, but still got a way to go, and there's still plenty of beliefs I'm sure that I have that are unhelpful. And you're also making a good point there. It's not always about the beliefs of the science. We can all agree about the science, but maybe we have different perspectives in how to actually, on beliefs and how to implement the science. And you might go, actually, I agree with what you're saying, but how you implement it is quite unhelpful, quite dogmatic. So I agree with that as well.
And in 10 years' time, we'll have to delete all these podcasts because they'll be out of date, mate.
Well, let's hope in 10 years' time we have just developed our thought process.
And we won't learn from this, we'll just pretend it never happened.
Yeah, we'll delete it. But I know professionals, very big in the industry, who have done that.
Yeah.
I again, not here to name names, but I know people who have done stuff from 10 years ago, and they're like, you know what, my opinion's changed a lot, and podcasts aren't relevant now, so they've deleted their previous podcasts.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's a great thing. It's probably a good thing. You know, some people are like, you would change shit before. It's like, no, at the time, that's what we thought as an industry. If you've been in the industry long enough, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, there's been some dramatic changes in the last decade, and there will be in the next 10, 20 years. So let's remember that.
Just delete it, pretend it never happened.
Yeah, it never happened. I never said that.
anything.
Never said
what
that.
podcast? No, it's delete it.
No.
No, our podcast started at number 155.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, let's just all stick with that open mindset and, embrace some uncomfortable conversations, but do it in the right way.
Right, guys, if you can I'm so shit at this. Subscribe, share. Share would be a good one.
Share would be really nice, guys. Yeah, if you've got some value, we really are passionate about this. We do put some time and energy and effort into this. And if you're listening, thank you for listening. And if you could share, that'd be really appreciated.
And do tag us if you do, because that'd be awesome.
Tag us in, please.
As we say, the seminars are going to be coming up later this year, the first one. So please do register your interest at either mine, Dan Green, TWPT, yours. You're James _Shibe, aren't you?
Just if you just for James Shibe.
There's only one, mate. There's only one.
So there is only one.
I know there's only one. Yeah. Everyone says there's only one of me. No, there is actually only one of him.
Yeah.
And or on the PT Education one, that'll be cool. Guess what? In a couple of weeks, normal one next week. So it'll be out next Friday. Catch you then.